Hey Reddit, what are some company secrets you can reveal for a company you no longer work for? I worked at NASA as a contractor for 2 years. 90% of the computing hardware was very antiquated and out of date. I saw a lot of Dell computers from the mid-2000s still being used. Yes, even pretty thin style monitors. That beige or off-white color. They are pretty underfunded and spend most of their money on more advanced hardware like supercomputers, large servers, etc. But the basic hardware is really out of date. In fact, the whole place looked like a museum of the 1990s. The architecture, the dress styles, the lighting, carpet, and so on. It was very strange. Almost eerie. Come to Walmart early after 7 to 8 p.m. We mark everything down. You're welcome. I worked at Great Clips. The stylists are strongly advised to only cut a client's hair between 10 and 15 minutes. If the stylist's average haircut time is more than 15-17 minutes, they might get talked to by the manager about speeding up their services or written up if it continues to happen. Stylists also get paid based on how fast and how many clients they have that day. If a person comes in with a long, tangled rat's nest and wants a complicated haircut that takes you an hour to deal with, they can duck up your timed average for the day and duck your pay. Verizon retail employees, and probably call center sales reps, are actively encouraged to lie to you to close a sale. Worked in several chain restaurants through college as a cook. Nothing to report that you probably haven't heard already. But I can tell you, most of the things you've been warned about are true. But the best thing I can tell you is, don't go to a restaurant within 30 minutes or so of its closing time. The cooks have already cleaned in an attempt to go home. At best you're getting the scraps left on the counter. At worst, well, you've pissed off the cooks. Oh. And I cooked at Hooters. They literally train the waitresses on how to flirt with customers. No. They don't like you. In fact, if you're a particularly odd looking or annoying customer, they tell the other waitresses about you and they look at you through the kitchen windows and mock you. Candyman here. We left chocolate out in display cases for months on end. When my friends came by to the store, I told them to avoid it at all costs. Glassdoor.com does remove job reviews and does let employers choose which ones get shown first. I used to work in financial services. Agents would sell products based on the commission, and not on how well the investment actually performed. Our customer service department was pretty much always taking calls from people who had been deceived about what to expect from their investment. I work for the post office now, and I will honestly say I have never worked with such hard-working people before. There are problems with managers expecting you to get things done quicker than humanly possible. And a lot of our equipment is old and falling apart. But I honestly feel like the vast majority of my co-workers are trying to take care of our customers and to just get home safely. Panera Bread, all of the soups. All of them come in frozen and in plastic bags. I am in Mexico and used to work at call centers. They would ask us to always state we were located in the US. I worked for Comcast and Sprint Nextel, but there were some other campaigns such as HP Tech Support or AT&T or Verizon. I ran the lens lab at a Pearl Vision back in the day. The most expensive frames we carried, the Armanis, cost us about $20 and cost you $400 minus $600. The most expensive lenses, outside of real ophthalmic specialties, what we called MTPROAs, polycarbonate aspheric with anti-glare, anti-scratch, cost them less than $20 and cost you $400. So a $1,000 pair of Armani glasses with all the bells and whistles? It cost about $40. The lab guy who made it was making $12 per hour. The lab itself, top of the line from Essilor, was about $250,000, peanuts compared to the profit margin. All staff, even just sales staff, had to wear lab coats and glasses at all times. If you didn't need glasses, you just wore glasses with zero prescription. The company would provide you outright with an eye exam every year. and once per year with a pair of prescription glasses and prescription sunglasses. Top of the line as long as they were in style that year. That was actually a cool perk. Oh. This was one of my favorites, in Maine. At the time. Medicare, wouldn't cover anti-scratch coating for adults. All of our CR39, the basic plastic lens. Super easy to scratch, just came with that pre-applied. We were actually supposed to intentionally strip that coating for Medicare customers. Costing us time and labor while depriving the customer. 99% of the time we just didn't bother. AT&T's customer service call center is run out of Canada. They made us say we were in the US, so I said I was in Detroit because it was across the river. Companies that deal with commercial truck driving licenses often have their drivers fudge the logbook numbers to make it look legal. Worked at PetSmart. I was actually told by a manager that it wasn't my responsibility, as a goddamn pet care associate, to tell people things like a plecto, an algae eating fish that grows a foot, was inappropriate for a 10-gallon tank. I don't know if it was that particular PetSmart or if they're all like that. But they definitely prioritized profit margin over animal welfare. You have people like me who actually give a shit. But it's just a few of us against a tidal wave of ignorance and straight up negligent malice. I'd be curious what other PetSmart workers have experienced. Please chime in. Being a butcher, I found out that a lot of things you're told to do goes against food hygiene. Bit of meat fell on the floor. Pick it up and give it a wash. Meat hit that point, it can't be in the window. Mince it. Chicken will go bad tomorrow. Kebab it. Just after Christmas we had a load of extra bacon that we didn't sell and was taking ages to go. It got to the point where the bacon was sticky and started growing mold fur. I was told to scrape off the mold fur and put it in the window for display. The joints and the sausages were hung up with rusted hooks and put me way off. The butcher's got top cleanliness ratings for some reason. Champs restaurants. The flavor in the seasoned sour cream you can't figure out is curry powder. Staples, and probably some other stores. They price match as long as the product is shipped and sold by Amazon. You can get many great deals at a convenient location. Always check for prices on Amazon because I can guarantee a lot of stuff there is overpriced. As per my username used to work for hotels, escaped in November of 2018. Sites like Expedia can do book more rooms than the hotel physically has. You want to be sure there will be a bed for you. Book on the hotel's own website. I worked at Dunkin' Donuts. And at least at my location, all the sheet was frozen. The free samples are the oldest donuts we have. And when serving, we pick donuts from the back of the tray, as those are the oldest. Also, my location wasn't too high volume, so we didn't switch out coffee every 18 minutes like we were supposed to. Coffee could be a few hours old. Sometimes donuts were over 5 or 8 hours old if they were a low demand kind. I worked at Raising Cane's for 2 years. If other stores keep up with the standards we had, there's nothing really to say. Basically the entire place was cleaned every day and I worked in the kitchen and at the counter. Even half the walls. Nothing was frozen except for the fries. The sauce and coleslaw was made in-house every day. And no food violations I can think of. Honestly a dope ass first job. One thing though. There's MSG in everything. That mattress you bought on clearance was a return somebody slept on for up to a month or so. At Inner Time Fitness. Personal trainers are only required to get a AMFPT certification. It's basically a mail order degree, for insurance purposes. They can also let you out of your membership personal training contacts with a few click of a mouse with no penalties to you or them. They just don't. Used to work at Best Buy. They take a small portion of laptops and do all the Geek Squad stuff to them. And put them back on the shelf with the new price with all the added junk. If the laptop sells fast, guess what's left over? And they won't give it to you at the advertised price. You had to pay more because it had been optimized. At least the store I was at wouldn't change the price if that was all we had. This is extremely controversial and I expect to get a lot of downvotes for this. But I worked for a major pharmaceutical company and I actually was instrumental in getting a number of drugs approved for the market. I saw my colleagues bend over backwards to present negative data to the FDA to ensure complete transparency. I wouldn't have continued working for the company if this was not the case. I also saw others in the company try to tell my colleagues that they were crazy. Closed bracket. I worked at Domino's for 2 years. I can say that they do not care if your pizza is ruined or burned or fell on the ground. On one occasion a pizza fell top first on the ground and my manager just gave it to the customer. Nordstrom. You can return anything. They will take it back. Used and all. Not specific to my company but used to work in a 4-star spa hotel. Bed sheets don't always get changed, especially with 1-2 night stays. Don't ever use the cups. The same cleaning rag that cleans the toilet will probably touch your cups too. They used to charge 30 quid for a basket of fruit. That fruit had been dropped on dirty service room floors and all sorts before being eaten by the customers that paid the 30 quid for it. In all seriousness, I can't relax in hotels at all now. This is about a decade old, so may no longer be applicable. But Microsoft has special pricing for non-profits that is about 1/10 the regular price. They don't advertise this. So a lot of resellers still sell the software to their non-profit customers at the regular price and enjoy the higher profit margin. Car insurance. Your credit score is a huge factor in determining your rates. People disproportionately think it's a speeding ticket in their driving history. Sure, it does. But if you wrote 2 identical policies for identical cars with 2 identical people in the same zip code, but a huge difference in credit score, you'd see completely disproportionate prices. Most agents don't talk about it, and in a bigger national companies, they'll likely automatically escalate the call to a specialist. I worked at an independent gym. But at most gyms the sign-up special is only there to mark up the perceived value of the membership. It's to convince you to buy into it with the idea that you're getting a special discount. The reality is that the original price doesn't actually exist and the deal or discount you get doesn't actually expire. It's just the standard membership rates that everybody is paying. I worked for the Northwest Company in northern Canada. The inner cart that they sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars they buy for $10.20 from the artist. I asked a manager why. He said it's because they're poor anyway. I quit that evil company the next week. Reformation. Their fabric is ridiculously overpriced. Because they are marketing towards the green gal, who suddenly cares about sustainable clothing. They've duped people into ditching stores like Forever 21 because they makes their clothes with shitty synthetic fibers to a brand that makes the same quality of clothing with renewable fabrics. Also, it's a startup so the store infrastructure is jacked. Management is young. Protocol is non-existent. HR is imaginary, and if any of the 20-something girls in management don't like a particular Instagram post of yours you can be fired. I used to work at TJ Maxx. If it was slow, the customer was chill, or they were buying a few items, I'd double check to see if any of it was cheaper. Stuff gets stashed until it goes out of date and or the markdown team misses things all the time. Nobody talks about it. But there's literally nothing in the handbook that says you can't. Not all cashiers know about it or have the codes to do it. But if you ask if there's any way to check if an item has been marked down you could luck out. All the big 4 accounting firms and some lawyers charge you for manager level staff every hour they work on your company. But they only pay the manager 9-5. No overtime. So that schmuck is basically working to get you to buy the engagement partner a Ferrari. I have had 4 long-term jobs since I moved to North Dakota. All of them nightmares. At a fabrication factory. We never met OSHA standards. We were barely able to get cut-proof gloves. Never had proper lifting equipment. We would have 4 guys pick up 20x3 sheet of metal. Throw it up as it bent in the brake press, so it didn't bend wrong. And then catch it on the way down. when the air quality guys showed up and picked the random people to wear the air quality badges. Those guys got to outside and sit in the metal yard for the 12-hour shift. We had engineers with no experience who designed a whole industrial outside heater with a covered gas cap. It was fine on the QC stage, cause it wasn't attached to a trailer. So when it was welded to the trailer, shipped to Alaska, and was ready for fueling, they couldn't get to the cap. Instead of a refund, we sent 6 welders and an engineer to cut fixes. 120 fixed heaters later, we refunded the money, and the factory shut down. At Walmart I learned an assistant manager's ID number and password for the registers, cause I wasn't allowed to go to lunch but was locked out of my numbers. When buying food products that are packed by the store, i.e. sandwiches, bakery items, etc., avoid anything that isn't in its original form portion. A slice of pie cake is only separated from the original whole pie cake because part of it went bad from sitting around. Pre-marinated meats are usually marinated spice to hide the fact that it isn't fresh. Worked at Michael's Arts and Crafts doing picture framing. It's retail. We didn't make commissions. The prices are non-negotiable. But there is always a sale of some kind. Never just go in because you have something that needs framing. Ask what the best possible sale is and then just wait for it to happen. Also, they do try to provide archival services. But whether or not this was fulfilled was highly dependent on the location you took it to. And the people working there. Helped out at a number of different stores. Saw a lot of shit and heard a lot of horror stories. Is the store understaffed but in a high foot traffic area? They're probably cutting corners. Rather than buy an expensive, branded product direct from a manufacturer in Austria, we bought the substantially cheaper and branded version from a local supplier that bought the OEM versions. They were the exact same except for one label, which we printed and stuck on. To demonstrate how effective solar thermal was, even in the dead of winter, we had a secret immersion heater hidden in a hot water tank, which would heat it up 50-60 degrees, even on the blackest of days. I worked for a building company that renovated an animal testing lab in UCD, University College Dublin. The lab is at the back of the agriculture building and is specifically designed to look like it is a building for industrial support equipment. Nowadays they only test on rodents. Back before the renovations the building had stables and rooms for other large mammals.